Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just back again with another of the sequence of the end times, and this is in Matthew 13. And this one to me is just absolutely incredible because there's a break in between a parable, and then that pause actually explains the end times, and then follows the end times narrative. And then this, to me, the structure is just incredible. That the way the Bible is constructed to teach, what Christ was teaching at that time in these parables, but then also have an extra layer of Bible prophecy, end times built into it. Absolutely fascinating. There's no way at this point for me that the Bible is constructed randomly and then that it's not true. It's incredible. Only God could create this kind of a structure and then reveal it to certain people. This is amazing. Matthew 13:10, then the disciples came to him and said, "Why do you speak to them in parables?" And he answered them, "To you it has been given to know the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For to the one who has, more will be given, and he has an abundance, but from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. This is why I speak to them in parables, because seeing they do not see, and hearing they do not hear, nor do they understand." Indeed, in their case, the prophecy of Isaiah is fulfilled that says, "You will indeed hear, but not understand, and you will indeed see, but never perceive. For this people's heart has grown dull, and with their ears they can barely hear, and their eyes they have closed. Lest they should see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their heart and turn, and I would heal them." And we all see this. If you're a flat earther or into any other truths or whatever, you can talk to people and they just won't get it. They won't talk about it. And so that's what's happening here, and just know that. So we're the lucky ones, and then that's an amazing thing that that God would choose us, to house certain truths. And so this whole section right here is talking about God's elect, and then how, like it says here in verse 16, "But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear." That's in verse 13, 16, 3, 6, 6, 6, 6. Blessed are your eyes, for they see. So this is talking about how the elect will see Christ return again, like in Acts 1, 10, 11, they're told. And so that's one reference to Christ's second coming and then salvation for God's elect. So that's always at the beginning of the sequence of the end times. And so verse 17, "For truly I say to you, many prophets and righteous people long to see what you see and did not see it, and to hear what you hear and did not hear it." So they were chosen. Christ is just reminding them, don't think that it's anything you did, that's just what it is. And then so they will have an understanding of that fully. Verse 18, "Hear then the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word," this is an explanation how the elect are different than the other groups that are out there in the world. "When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is what was sown along the path. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while. And when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away." So that's language that is described the elect going through tribulation. And then Christ returns after the tribulation period, but prior to wrath, because the elect do not experience wrath. Okay. And then those wrath are plagues to identify the rest of God's right hand side through the Great Tribulation period where Moses and Elijah are prophesying. So just know that. Verse 22, "And as for what was sown among thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the cares of the world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it proves unfruitful." Verse 23, "As for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it." You have to understand what's going on. "He indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, another 60, and another 30. And so that's God's elect. Okay. They understand what's going on, and then for people who understand the numerology, that's 1323, that's 36. That's in the last days that they're going to hear the word and understand it. They're being woken up everywhere, God's elect worldwide, by God himself. Just know that. It's not the work of man or anything like that. So just know that. I'll read 23 again. "As for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, and another 60, and in another 30. So that whole section is talking about God's elect. Okay. So now after the sequence, there's going to be a time of distinguishing two groups of people, God's left-hand side and then the mixed multitude. And then that's why Christ now is segueing into the parable of the weeds. "He put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good field in the seed. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the master of the house came and said, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have weeds? He said to them, An enemy has done this. So the servants said to him, which are his elect, Then do you want us to go and gather them? So the elect are outside of this. They're asking him, do you want us to go, and gather up the rest of God's right-hand side? And so he said, no, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow until the harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the reapers, which are the angels, gather the weeds first and bind them in the bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat in my barn. So it says, gather the weeds first and bind them bundles to be burned. They're not going to be burned yet, and that's going to be explained later. But gather the wheat into my barn. That is the rest of God's right-hand side who are given white robes, but they have to go through the Great Tribulation period. But then they're going to then be in Christ's barn. They're going to be safe before the burning happens. That's when Christ returns with his elect and just destroys everything. The Bible says you could count the number of trees that are, a child could count the number of trees that are left. That's how much God is just going to annihilate the whole earth. And so just know that. So first we have the elect, and then we have a description here of God's right-hand side, what's called the mixed multitude, and so they're from all nations, and then they refuse the mark of the beast during this time where it's essentially going to be forced, and then I believe that it's going to be forced because of these sores in Revelation 16:2. Verse 31, he put another parable before them saying, so now we have to get some sort of coded language of Christ returning with his elect in the sky, and so that's what we get here when it talks about a tree. He put another parable before them saying, the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it is grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. So it's talking about birds flying and then resting on a tree, which is symbolic of Christ. This is Christ returning with his elect in UFOs. They're just massive. And they're all in the sky, and they're in the air, and then below their feet are all going to be all their enemies. Everybody with God's left hand side. He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like leaven that a woman took and hid in 3 measures of flour till it was all leavened. So now that's kind of strange. Why would Christ take a break from the parables of the weeds? But just know that it's to fulfill Bible prophecy. It's a double message that's being conveyed to us now that we understand. Verse 36, then he left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples came to him. So now this is language that he's with his disciples. He's with his elect. Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field. He answered, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so it will be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and lawbreakers, and throw them into the fiery furnace. This is here on earth. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. That's here. These are bodies. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Here, he who has ears, let him hear. And so Christ now is talking about a time when he's returning, like it says here, he's with his disciples and his angels. And they're just going to burn everything, and everybody on the earth is going to have the mark of the beast. And so just know that. And so that's the sequence of the end times. And then the last reference is the kingdom, and then you have many other parables right afterwards that go into the kingdom. The parable of the hidden treasure. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys the field. So a person's desire to go into the kingdom should outweigh any material gain that they have here on earth. They don't care. It's just garbage, nonsense. Okay. And that's the attitude that we have in these days, because it is actually garbage. And so it's not funny, but it couldn't be easier in the times that we live in now to discredit all the nonsense that's going on here on earth. All of it's stupid. And so just know that. And then there's another one again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who on finding the pearl of great value went and sold all that he had and bought it. And then there's another one, the parable of the net. And so there's multiple references to the kingdom. Okay, so this is again the amazing aspect of the Bible, is that it's always prophetic. It breathes prophecy. Okay, that's why in the end times that those people who have the testimony of God have to have the spirit of prophecy, because then they won't truly understand Christ's words. They'll just think that he's talking about, like these weeds and stuff, and then all that. But it's talking about the end times, and then the way the end times is going to happen in a very, very specific sequence, and then who's involved. and then what its purpose is. And then ultimately the end times is to get God's right-hand side recombined with him. First and foremost, the elect, and then the mixed multitude, which have to give up their life, and then they're given white robes as well. The metaphorically described here as gather the wheat into my barn. And so just know that. So again, Matthew 13 is Christ being a teacher, but also a prophet at the same time. Hope everyone's doing well. Bye.